There were some big performances and big results in round 6 of the URC. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Round 6 was actually fairly entertaining in the URC. If I had a Stormers jersey, I'd be wearing that because I think they produced the performance of the weekend, well, especially the 40 minutes of the weekend, that second half performance against Munster. But I don't, so next best thing, at least in my mind, is Cardiff's performance. So we got the Cardiff jersey on in their honour. Hopefully at some stage I'll be able to get a Stormers jersey. I'll be able to represent them properly. Okay, so I'm going to go down through the results, have a quick talk about each of them, not too much, and then look at the table when we're done. So we're going to start with the Friday night games. So the first Friday night game, Ulster 47, Benetton 13. So, this one kind of early on, there was, a bit of back and forth between the teams. You had Balakoon going over for a try for Ulster. Werner Koch, who's been a brilliant signing from them, gets over as well. But we also have penalties from, from Jacob Manga. And we have a try for them as well. And that was Bernasconi got over for them. So, and the try was converted as well. So, Benetton being somewhat competitive in the first half, and then just before half time, Umaga puts over another penalty for them as well. So, at half time, Benetton definitely in the game, and I think maybe, I'm not sure exactly up to score, but I think they were maybe leading 13 points to 12. I'm pretty sure that's right. Into the second half, though, Ulster produced a brilliant second half. They 4 tries in that second half. James Hume starts it off for them. Werner Koch with his second. Then Harry Sheridan, who was a brilliant young player who hopefully is going to get some reputation from or representation from Ireland next year, because I think he's in that kind of bracket of the players who are ready to make the step up, but they're not necessarily being opportunities enough for him. Then Rob Balakoon with his second, another guy who definitely has the ability to perform for Ireland, but I think more in his case through injury, he kind of lost the momentum that he had. I was there actually in the Aviva when he made his debut against the USA and scored an absolutely worldly of a try in that game. But yeah, Ulster penalty try as well for them in that second half too. So all in all, 7 tries to Ulster. Benetton just got blown away really in the second half after having that lead as well. And something I've said about Benetton as this season is we're not seeing them being as competitive away from home. Looked like they were maybe turning around in this game up to half time, but in the second half just said no, it's back to the way they've been for most of the season. So final score, Ulster 47, Benetton 13. Right, so on to the next one then. So next game then, Dragons versus Leinster. There's a full review of this on the channel if you want more details. But it finished Dragons 10, Leinster 24. Dragons far more competitive maybe than people were, were giving them credit for. Leinster, honestly, very lucky not only to get away with a bonus point win, but to get out with a win as well. Because there was an incident towards the end where Dragons could have had the penalty on the line when it was 17-10 to Leinster at that stage. And, there's a good chance with potentially a Leinster player in the bin that they get over a score, try and convert it as well to make it 17-all and set up a grandstand finish. But, the interpretation of officials have varied hugely this season, in the URC and at test level as well. So, I think they can feel a bit aggrieved there. And certainly as a Leinster fan, I said it on the full review. I say here again, I don't think we deserved a bonus point win out of that game at all. But it started well for Leinster. Alex Soroka gets over and scores a try. Like after about 3 or 4 minutes of the game. Then Leinster have a bit of a period where, they're looking good, but they're not actually adding more points. And before half time, then we have Matthew Screech gets over for the Dragons, and that's converted. So Dragons are actually leading the game 7 points to 5 at the break. And, Leinster in that period as well, 10 minutes leading up to the break, Mangan went to the bin, and then Scott Penny went to the bin as well. Scott Penny was the guy involved in the late incidents as well, so he could have potentially gotten a second yellow card out of that. So Dragons actually looking decent at the break. Into the second half then, Leinster, another fast start. JJ Kenny gets over to score. Then there's a bit of back and forth, like Dragons not really out of it. And then Kenny gets his... we have a penalty first. Mangus O'Brien again. The Dragons just not going away, keeping in touch at that point. And then I think it's 12-10 at that stage. Then 20 minutes to go, JJ Kenny in for a second, 17-10. Then, as I said, Dragons pushing for that, try to bring themselves level. We have a shoulder to head. It's ruled as just a rugby incident and no foul play at all. And again, I think a lot of Dragon fans can be rightfully be incensed by that call, because we've seen so many of them this November in the tests, or in November in the tests. So nothing given there. And then right at the death then, Orgy Sneyman, marauds his way to the try line to get the bonus point try, and Leinster get out with a very lucky win. And Leinster's issues this season seem to just continue, even though for them maybe the win was probably the most important thing from there, but still they've got to start producing performances at some stage. We'll final score: Dragons 10, Leinster 24. So those were our Friday night games. On to the Saturday games then. So we had the Bulls versus the Lions, and the Bulls had a bit of a blip before the international break. And, this was a chance for them to get back on, back on target really with where they wanted to be in the URC, and it didn't really happen for them. Lions actually start well, and, first half, the Lions, Mbaku, Stain, and Kearns all over for tries for them. And, from the Bulls side, Papier for 2, and then Akker van der Merwe gets over for a try as well. And we got a penalty for the Lions as well from Chris Smith. I think that was the opening score of the game. So it's tight at the break. And then into the second half then, Esther Hazen gets over for the Lions as they're taking a little bit of control of the game. And then we have a crazy last 10 minutes where we've got 4 tries. So we've got Cater, and then Stain with his second for the Lions. So it looks like, they're winning comfortably at that stage. And then the Bulls start to come back in the last 5 minutes. Keegan Johannes gets a try, and then Sebastian de Klerk with 2 minutes to go gets over. But then they can't get under a score that would have got them the losing bonus point. But it was that period really before that kind of 20 minutes from just after 50 minutes to like 75 minutes or so, where the Lions got their scores and just took the game away from the Bulls and just left themselves too much to do, even though they did get 2 tries in the last 5 minutes, just not enough from them. But they did at least get a try bonus point out of that. But the Lions now, they had a torrid time really on the tour of Europe. But since they've gone back to South Africa now, I think it's 3 from 3 from them, because they had 2 home wins and then they had this one, you know, on the back of that as well. So, you know, South Africa are a very good hunting ground for the Lions. Just have to be able to do it on the road in Europe as well. And we'll see the potential of the team finally shining through. But unfortunately, we haven't seen that to date, you know, over the seasons in the URC. Right. So on to the next game then. And that was Zebre 14, Cardiff 29. That's why I'm wearing the Cardiff jersey for this one. And, you know, Cardiff get a brilliant start. David Hughes, first half hat-trick for him. 2 tries in the first 20 minutes and 1 just before the break. And we have Lecati over for Zebre there. And in that first half as well, we have he got a yellow card as well. So he committed a bin and then he scored a try for his team. Into the second half then, you know, for Zebre, we're not seeing, you know, as much of a threat trying to get back into the game, but it's actually, you know, Cardiff who just keep that scoreboard ticking a little bit. Yoan Lloyd with a penalty. Then we have, you know, some more yellow cards. So, Ruggieri goes to the bin for Zebre. And that's followed then by Tame Basham going to the bin for Cardiff. And during that yellow card period then, Marco Zanon gets over for Zebre's second try as they're trying to get themselves back to the game. But now there's only 5 minutes left on the clock. And right at that then, Zanon, after scoring a try, he goes to the bin for Zebre. And then Basham, who's back out of the bin, he scores for Cardiff. So a lot of players scoring tries and getting yellow cards in this game. You know, like I think 2 for Zebre and then Basham for Cardiff as well. But a brilliant win for Cardiff because, you know, a lot of people last year, certainly when they're doing well, were saying, oh, but they're only doing it against the Welsh teams. They need to be able to do it against other teams on the road. And, you know, while maybe, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, you might have said, oh, well, it's only Zebre that they won against. Nobody's saying that anymore. You know, Zebre are one of the toughest places now to go, honestly, in the URC because they're just so competitive at home. And so for Cardiff to be able to go away there and not just win, get a bonus point win as well, just shows there's a bit more about this Cardiff team than maybe some people give them credit for. But, you know, they've been doing really well. And again, core of the team is very young too. So it means that there's more improvement there from them. And just have to keep that momentum going, I feel. Zebre, you know, going to be disappointed, you know, playing at home because they've already had a couple of wins this year. They would have loved to have, you know, put a third one on there and just stay in that mix. They don't want to kind of get separated away from the teams that are kind of will probably be vying for those playoff places. Like they've never been in real contention for playoffs. I think that's where their ambition needs to lie now is they need to be somewhere in the mix, not necessarily getting into the playoffs. Maybe if they can go to, you know, 2 or 3 rounds from the end of the season, that still at least mathematically have a chance to qualify. I think that would be a massive step forward for them. So yeah, they're going to, I think the next time they're at home in the URC, they're definitely going to be looking to get another win. Okay. So next game then, another game we covered on the channel, Munster 21, DHL Stormers 27. And this really was, you know, a game of 2 halves. Munster looked absolutely superb in the first half. 3 tries, Ty Byrne, John Hodnett and Jack Crowley all going over. During that period, you had 2 yellow cards for Stormers. You had Conor Evans early on and then Marcel Tunison in the bin as well for them. And you had Matty pinging over penalties just to keep them, you know, a little bit in touch, but 21-6 at half time. Then into the second half, Munster don't score a point and Stormers produce a really brilliant, you know, comeback in kind of the last 20 minutes or so. But before then, like their set piece, especially their scrum, was giving them a bit more of a platform. You know, they were winning scrum penalties, etc., and they're getting more of a platform than in the first half. And Munster seemed to tighten up and not be able to produce the rugby they were able to in the first half. So in that last 20 odd minutes or so, you had first Smith, then Mark diving in over in the corner, Ruan Nell then getting a try, you know, with about 8 minutes to go. And during that period as well, you had Gavin Coombs went to the bin for Munster, and then Munster thought they'd actually won the game, where cross kick from Casey out to the wing, and they go over in the corner. Crowley then converts it to make the score 28-27, but then they have a Timo check, and we see that before Casey got the ball to give that cross kick, that Crowley had actually knocked the ball on and basically knocked it into his hands, so we never regathered, so it was a knock on, so a correct call there. And then Munster weren't able to produce anything else from there. So really well done from the Stormers there. Brilliant performance. Munster, you know, got to be very disappointed that they couldn't produce even a single score in that second half, because you felt like if they did, it probably would have been enough to get them home. But, you know, they weren't able to do it. And, you know, the scrum in a lot of kind of trouble as well there. And I saw somebody post as well in the comments, and I think I agree with it as well. Stormers may be taking a little bit of inspiration from the way the Springboks have been performing, you know, through November, especially against Ireland in that game as well. And yeah, Munster were maybe the victims of that. But again, you know, two teams who were unbeaten up to this point in the season, and Munster's always the one to go for them. But Stormers continue on, you know, unbeaten, and it's going to take a hell of a performance to beat them, you know, on the evidence of this game here. But final score, Munster 21, Stormers 27. Okay, on to the next game then, and that was Edinburgh 19, Ospreys 17. So in this one, you know, bit of back and forth. You had Davis goes over for Ospreys first, then Edinburgh replied through Tom Curry. Neither of those tries were converted, so at half-time we're 5-5. Then into the second half, then Ospreys take the lead again. So Phil Cocknessingha goes over for them. Really good signing for them as well, you know. Very talented wing. And he's over, so they again not converted, so they got a 5-point lead. Then Harry Morris over for Edinburgh about 10 minutes later. That one is converted, so now Edinburgh for the first time in the match edge into the lead. And then with 10 minutes to go, Harry Patterson gets over for them, and it's converted. So now they've got like a 9-point lead, 19-10. You know, with less than 10 minutes to go. Then 5 minutes to go, Boshoff gets over for Ospreys. It's converted by Jack Walsh, so 2-point game. But then Ospreys, you know, bit of momentum with them, but they can't get that score, you know, to get the win out of the game. So Edinburgh again up and down during the game, and we talked about it before in terms of their consistency, and they'll just, I think, be happy with the win. You know, obviously they would have loved to have gotten another score and got a bonus point win, but with how close it was, I think just taking the win out of that. Edinburgh 19, Ospreys 17, the final score. Okay, on to then the last two games. So first up, we had Connacht 44, Sharks 17. And again, Connacht, another team who are searching for just consistency, and we haven't seen it yet this year, but under Stuart Lancaster, you know, we're hoping that they're going to get that, and maybe this is going to be a step towards that for them. But we have Mbata scoring for the Sharks, open scoring. Pretty much from the restart, though, Paul Boyle gets over for Connacht, and they converted their try. Sharks didn't, so Connacht hit the lead. Then before half time, Shea Mullins over for a second Connacht try, and that one is converted as well. So they're leading 14-5 is a decent lead at the break. Into the second half then. Oh, sorry, we had some penalties as well that I forgot about. We had actually 3 penalties from Connacht, so they were actually leading 23-5, I think, at the break, if I'm right. And then into the second half then, kind of like almost 20 minutes and we don't get another score, but then Hugh Gavin is over for Connacht, and that kind of sets off a bit of back and forth with, you know, try scoring. So Mapimpi then goes in for the Sharks. Then Connacht get over through Matthew Devine. That's their bonus point try. And then Van Heerden is in for the Sharks with 5 minutes to go. And finally then Sam Lilo gets the final score for Connacht there. And, you know, like they at least had that buffer when that back and forth was going on. So that, you know, the Sharks weren't kind of breathing down their neck, but still, you know, they'd want to kind of avoid that kind of thing, I think, in the future, and kind of have more, you know, periods where they can get back-to-back scores themselves, you know, to kind of finish off games instead of, you know, Connacht seem to have that thing of switching off after they scored, and certainly for you say for the Van Heerden try, that certainly happened to them. But again, they produce a good, you know, a decent response themselves with the Boyle try in the first half too. So great result for Connacht, 44-17 against the Sharks. Sharks again, like, you know, you look at the talent that's there, and yes, they've obviously got players away with the Springboks that weekend as well that played against Wales. But still, you look at the talent in that squad, and you know, other than last year, really, the performance that they produce in the URC just aren't good enough, honestly. Next, then, the final game of the weekend, Scarlets 23, Glasgow Warriors 0. So another big performance, this one from the Scarlets, and a bit of a shock, honestly, like, because Glasgow, you know, they won that kind of face-off against the Bulls there before the international break and set themselves up, you know, to potentially be the team that were going to, you know, take it to the likes of Stormers and Munster at the top of the table. So the fact that they lose this one then, you know, and lose it in the manner that they did as well, was a little bit of a shock. So, you know, Scarlets obviously with all the points. So first half, they have a try from Josh MacLeod, then a couple of penalties from Sam Costello. In the second half then, within 10 minutes, Max Page over for the second try. And then with about 15 minutes to go, Costello with another penalty to make it 23-0. And Glasgow not really firing a shot. Even in the last kind of, you know, 10 minutes or so, where Cookson went to the bin for Scarlets, they still couldn't get over the line and give themselves at least, you know, a chance at maybe getting out of town with a losing bonus point, but it wasn't to be. And Glasgow going to be very disappointed, I think, with that performance. Scarlets, their first win of the season as well. So, you know, that's going to give them a little bit of momentum going into Europe. Maybe they go into Europe, you know, a lot of teams, I think, are people looking at the Scarlets thinking they're going to be in the Champions Cup, you know, not expecting much of them. So even if they can go into Europe and produce a performance and then come back to the URC, and maybe, you know, they'll have confidence from this win and from a performance where nobody gave them a chance at all, and it might be like the kickstart that they need for their season. Okay, so those are the results. Now we're going to have a look at the table. So let me pull that up now. So top of the table, we've got the Stormers, 6 from 6, the only unbeaten team left in the league now after that win against Munster, you know, riding high on 27 points. Then second place is Cardiff, and again, you know, because I don't have a Stormers jersey, the Cardiff jersey, I think, is definitely the most appropriate one to wear for this week. So 5 wins out of 6 in second place on 25 points, and that's a brilliant, place to be at the 1/3 point of the season. They just need to, keep some momentum going, and they're gonna reach, if they can. They don't need to necessarily go 5 from 6 from the next, group of 6 games, but if they can even win about half of them, then they're going to be in a really strong position to make the playoffs. And obviously, they want to stay as high in the league as well as they can, and potentially, it's a long way from here to the end of the regular season, but at the moment, they're in a position where they'd have not just only a home quarter-final, but a home semi-final. So the higher up they can finish, the better. Munster then in 3rd place, that defeat against the Stormers, I think it was something that was coming for this team, honestly, because they did have some performances where, probably got outplayed, but got the win. And, in this one, against the Stormers, definitely got outplayed in that second half and couldn't produce the score in the end for the win. But still, a really good start to the season for them. 5 from 6 on 24 points in 3rd. Ulster then in 4th place, really beginning to come good. Now, it's taken them about a year and a half really to get to this stage where, change of coach and, under Richie Murphy, getting his style there and bringing through some young talent as well. So they're 4 from 5 and they're on 21 points. Now, there's no guarantee they're going to win the game in hand because it is away to Edinburgh, and Edinburgh, can produce big performances at times. 5th place then is Glasgow, 4 from 6 on 20 points. So definitely going to be disappointed with that loss against Scarlets, because they would have, probably would have been thinking a win there and we're up into the top 3, because they knew the Stormers were playing Munster. Wasn't to be for them. Leinster starting to climb the table now. They're in 6th place, 3 from 3 on 16 points. Got the Lions after that excellent win against the Bulls, who they leapfrogged there in 7th place on 16. The Bulls there, dropping down the table, 8th place on 15. Another team like Glasgow, who would have thought, okay, decent chance of winning at the weekend and just getting themselves, up into that kind of top pack. Now they're down in the middle a little bit, and a lot more work needed for them, I think. Connacht then in 9th place, 2 wins from 5 on 14. So again, a mixed start to the season for them. And right beside the other really inconsistent team, Edinburgh, 2 wins from 5 from them too on 13 points, in 10th. Then Zebre in 11th, 2 wins from 6. A decent start to the season for them on 10 points, but they will want to, get another result on the board fairly soon. They don't want to just keep slipping down that table. Benetton then in 12th, on the back of another not brilliant away performance, honestly, especially second half against Ulster. 2 wins from 4 from them as well on 9 points. Ospreys then in 13th place, and they've got 1 win and a draw so far this season and 4 losses on 8 points. And then the Sharks, with an identical record, just points difference, putting them down at 14th place, also on 8 match points. Then we into the bottom 2 then. So Dragons there, still no win for them this year yet. Could have been though against Leinster, honestly. The potential was there, but the decision just didn't go their way. When we don't know what would have happened had they scored and made it 17-all, and then set up that kind of barnstorming finish with Leinster wobbling a little bit. But yeah, 2 draws from their 6 games so far and 4 defeats on 5 points. And then Scarlets finally got some points on the board. Got their first win of the season against Glasgow. 1 win out of 5, and they're on 4 points. Well, at least now they're within touching distance of a few teams above them there in the league. So, some big movements from teams, upwards and downwards in the table this round. Going to be a bit kind of disrupted now, because now we've got European games. So the URC is kind of be on again, off again type deal really for them. And, but it's these kind of periods where teams can make serious moves. If you can juggle your squad well enough to be able to perform in Europe and get results in the URC as well, that can, really turn, seasons around for teams that are there maybe in the bottom 8. But also disrupting of the European games can have a negative effect on some of the teams that are in that top 8. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes from there. But let me know what you think down in the comments.